What if trying to do, like, the exact right thing, like
Yeah.
really trying to save a marginalized group of people or trying to broker peace,
Right.
what if trying to build something lasting actually turns you into a monster?
It's the ultimate paradox of diplomacy, isn't it?
Totally.
We tend to view compromise as this, inherently noble act. You give a little, I give a little, and we arrive at the greater good.
That's the theory, anyway.
Exactly. But what happens when the currencies you're trading to reach that compromise are other people's safety?
Wow, yeah.
Or geopolitical stability? Or, your own soul?
That is the terrifying question at the center of today's deep dive.
It really is.
We are reconstructing a story from the world of High Point.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, we're following the Endless Traders.
Right.
And we're going to look at a man who successfully negotiated peace among 5 heavily armed factions.
A massive achievement on paper.
Right. He secured the future of an exiled people, but, and here's the catch, he completely destroyed himself and his empire to do it.
Yeah, the cost is it's staggering.
But to understand the sheer scale of this disaster, you have to start in a place where nothing is quite what it seems. We start in Salt City.
Which is, frankly, a remarkably unforgiving place to begin anything.
Oh, absolutely brutal.
Salt City is this subterranean sprawl.
Yeah.
And the tavern we need to look at, the one where this all kicks off, is built right into the sweating, curving inside wall of the city itself.
I can almost smell it.
You probably wouldn't want to. The environment is aggressively hostile. Above you, you've got these industrial pipes knocking with this rhythmic, this really threatening pulse.
Right.
And the air is just thick. It smells heavily of damp stone and mineral rot.
And if you step outside that tavern, you are literally taking your life into your hands.
Exactly.
The rain falling on Salt City isn't just a weather event. It's a gamble.
A literal roll of the dice.
Yeah. Sometimes it's ordinary water, but sometimes it's lunar rain, which, behaves in ways physics doesn't entirely support.
Right. It just defies logic.
And depending on the mood of the sky, that precipitation might just be entirely fatal.
Survival is the absolute baseline there. Comfort is a complete myth.
Totally.
If you look around this dimly lit tavern, the patrons are hardened. You have cog layers with machinery grease permanently baked into the creases of their elbows.
Yeah.
You have dwarf teamsters resting between these brutal river barge shifts.
And isn't there like a bugbear playing cards or something?
Yes. A bugbear sitting in the corner, wearing a scholar's cap, silently playing cards. These are people who have lived entirely too long beneath roofs they do not trust.
And right in the middle of this grim tableau is a guy staring at a cup.
Just hyper-focused on it.
He is looking at this cup like it holds the meaning of life. Inside is this pale blue liquid, and it's faintly glowing.
Yeah, it looks like a drowned star sitting smugly at the bottom of the glass.
And the bartender has just charged him an exorbitant, life-altering amount of coin, claiming it is the legendary Phantasmal Sea Star Brandy.
Right. And the patron is grinning. He thinks he's tasting a myth.
But then a voice from the next table casually murders that smile.
Oh, it's such a great scene.
An old woman named Kaisri leans over. And she doesn't yell. She doesn't make a scene.
No, not at all.
She just looks at the cup and says, it's fake.
Just shatters him instantly.
Completely deflates the guy.
Yeah.
And she's not guessing either. She explains exactly how he was conned.
Yeah, the breakdown she gives is amazing.
Someone took plain, cheap plainsman's whiskey and threw a low-level fairy fire charm over it. It's just a surface illusion.
The afterglow is wrong. The viscosity is wrong.
The smell lacks the signature brine.
Right.
And then she twists the knife right. She tells him that if he had actually bought the real brandy, he wouldn't have enough money left to be drinking in a damp dive bar with a leaking ceiling.
It's so cold. But the mechanics of how Tizer handles the fallout are brilliant.
Oh, I love this part.
The seller, realizing the con is up, tries to slip away into the crowd. But Tizer simply places one hand on his sleeve.
She doesn't even grab him, right?
Exactly. She doesn't squeeze. She just lets her thumb rest there. Because hidden right under that thumb is a hooked knife.
Unbelievable.
She looks at the seller and says, "Sit." And he sits.
She doesn't need to brandish the weapon. The implication of violence, backed by absolute certainty, It just commands the entire room.
Because Taisri isn't just a tough regular. She is part of the Endless Traders, specifically the Mabb Makut tribe.
Right.
If you want to understand the geopolitics of High Point, you have to understand the Mabb Makut. They aren't just moving grain or iron ore down a river.
There's so much more than that.
They are the ultimate arbiters of authenticity.
Okay, wait, hold on. Let's unpack this.
Sure.
So are they merchants or are they intelligence brokers?
Sure.
Because those are two very different skill sets.
They are inextricably both.
Wow.
In a world with magic and subterranean shadows and warring factions, truth is the most valuable commodity.
That makes sense.
The Mabb Makut tribe deals in appraisal. They have the lenses, the precise scales, the sealed jars, the historical record.
The experts of the experts.
Exactly. Half the kings in the world pay them exorbitant sums to spot a forgery.
And the other half pays them to hide one.
Exactly. They manipulate the perception of truth.
That is such a cool dynamic.
But Taisra, as sharp as she is, isn't the one who can explain what happened to the real Phantasmal Sea Star Brandy.
No, she points him out.
Right. For that, she points her hook knife across the tavern toward the stove. Sitting there is a quiet, meticulously neat man in a patched red coat.
And his name is Spariln.
Spariln, he used to be the leader of the Mabb Makut.
Right, he was the guy. The distributor of the real brandy.
He is the kingpin, basically.
And sitting next to him in our narrative reconstruction, though, I mean, he's long gone by the time Taisra points him out, is his assistant, Rory.
Rory.
Rory is the mathematical counterweight to Spariln's ambition. He is younger, infuriatingly calm, and possesses a memory for numbers that borders on the terrifying.
Yeah, Rory is a fascinating character. While Spariln manages promises and these massive diplomatic spinning plates, Rory calculates exact weights, ledgers, and tariffs.
He's the spreadsheet guy.
Exactly. He has the polite, unreadable smile of a man who hasn't yet decided if loyalty yields a positive return on investment.
That is so dangerous.
Very.
So let's talk about the journey they have to take. To get this brandy, they have to leave Salt City and go down into the Underdeep.
Right.
But you don't just, like, walk down a grand staircase. The geography of High Point makes that impossible.
No, you have to surrender to the endless river.
Surrender. I like that word.
It's the operative word. Spariln stands at the prow of 6 heavily laden rafts. They are carrying exquisite cargo meant to fund this journey.
Right. Rare spices, waxed cloth, and moonrain glass.
Which is such an incredible detail in this setting.
I know, moonrain glass.
Yes.
It's glass forged or tempered specifically by the weird, unpredictable precipitation of the surface world.
Yes.
Things that the denizens of the Underdeep will pay foolish prices for, simply because it represents a world they cannot reach.
Right. And as they are heading out, Rory is constantly adjusting the cargo. He's analyzing the water displacement, pointing out that Spariln's lead raft is listing to the side.
And Spariln just waves him off.
Yeah, he dismisses it with this incredibly arrogant line. He says, "All successful traders list. That's how you know we are carrying profit."
I mean, it sounds cool, but it tells you everything you need to know about his psychology.
It really does.
He thinks his ambition physically protects him. But then they hit the cliff wall.
Right. The endless river doesn't just casually flow into a spacious cavern.
No, it enters the foaming maze.
The hydrodynamics of the foaming maze are pure nightmare fuel.
Seriously.
The river narrows violently. It splits into these white tongues of water that throw themselves into jagged cracks in the stone.
It's a blindingly fast, pitch-black gauntlet.
The water slams the raft sideways against the walls. Stone teeth flash out of the dark, close enough to shear an elbow off if you lean an inch too far.
You are plunging down drops where it feels like the river just forgot the floor existed.
Yeah.
The air smells of the city's bitter washings. It is sensory terror.
Chaos.
But here is the thing that really stands out. Spariln is smiling.
He loves it.
He is shouting commands in the dark, perfectly reading the deadly currents, absolutely thriving on the adrenaline.
And that adrenaline is his fatal flaw. He mistakes physical navigation for intellectual control.
Okay, but wait. Isn't that a good trait?
What do you mean?
I mean, if you're leading a merchant fleet through a deadly underground rapid, you want the guy at the front to be confident and completely in his element, right? Fear gets you killed.
Well, sure. Confidence in the maze keeps you alive, yes. But his love for the danger creates a massive blind spot.
I see.
The Endless Traders' true wealth isn't the moonrain glass they carry. Their monopoly exists purely because they are the only ones who know exactly which blind turn in the foaming maze leads to an underground market.
Right.
And which turn leads to a dead-end cavern full of polished bones.
The route is the treasure.
Exactly. Spariln is a master of this physical peril. He believes that because he can steer a raft through lethal rapids, he can steer hostile foreign powers through diplomatic rapids.
Oh, that's a dangerous assumption.
He fundamentally misunderstands the difference between a river, which is predictable in its physics, and people who are unpredictable in their hatred.
That is a phenomenal distinction. The river doesn't hold a grudge. People do.
Precisely.
So after 4 hours of this violent, deafening chaos, the river just spits them out. The roar of the foaming maze fades behind them, and they drift into this sudden, heavy, humid calm.
It's quite a transition.
Welcome to the coral jungle.
The ecological shift is jarring. You go from violent black stone to a massive, sprawling cavern filled with towering branches of dormant purple and white coral.
It's crazy.
During flood seasons, this place is entirely underwater. It's a vibrant deep-sea reef. But right now, the water has withdrawn into the river channels. It's a damp, towering jungle of living stone.
And the wildlife. You have pale crabs the size of dogs climbing the coral structures.
Yeah.
Squids are pulsing bioluminescent light in the deeper pools.
Right.
And drifting lazily through the shallows are these fist-sized, softly glowing apparitions, the real phantasmal sea stars.
They're beautiful.
And living right in the middle of this bizarre ecosystem are the Low Slathem.
The Low Slathem are the brewers of the brandy.
The real deal.
Yes. They are tall, their skin is constantly wet, and they are colored like bruised shells. Deep purples, soft grays. They carve their homes directly into the dormant coral.
Let's talk about the real Phantasmal Sea Star Brandy for a second, because it explains why Spariln goes to such lengths.
We really should.
They distill it into these squat, heavy blue glass bottles. When you open it, it smells of brine and wood smoke and pear skin.
Which is such a weird but evocative combination.
I know. And when you drink it, the liquid actually tingles with the harmless residual energy of those glowing ghosts.
It's a multi-sensory experience.
Surface nobles and gear right masters pay literal fortunes for it.
It is an incredibly lucrative export. But the people who make it the Low Slathem are treated as absolute pariahs.
It's so unfair.
They claim a direct lineage to the Grand Slathem civilization further down in the Underdeep, but the aristocratic High Slathem have entirely rejected them.
Did you shut them out?
They close their city gates. They call the Low Slathem refugees as a slur.
So you have a highly skilled population forced into exile, living in a damp, dangerous jungle.
Right.
And this introduces us to the central grievance of the story. Spariln docks his raft, and wading waist-deep into the freezing, muddy river to meet him is Pulsey. Pulsey is the leader of the Low Slathem. He's cautious, he never smiles, and he has these eyes that blink sideways like a reptile.
And Pulsey is standing in the mud because his people have no infrastructure.
None.
They're completely locked out of the established trade networks.
I really want to emphasize the indignity of this. For you listening, imagine running a multi-million-dollar export business.
Yeah.
Your product is the toast of high society. But because of institutional bigotry, you are not legally allowed to own a warehouse or a dock.
It's crazy.
Every time you make a massive corporate transaction, you have to stand shivering in river mud while your business partner, Spariln, looks down at you from a dry, comfortable raft.
It's humiliating.
So humiliating.
It's an enforced hierarchy. Spariln has become wildly wealthy and politically influential off the back of Pulsey's labor.
Right. Spariln goes to gear-right salons and noble galas. Pulsey goes back to a damp hole in a coral reef.
And then Spariln, looking down at Pulsey in the mud, is suddenly struck by a wave of pity and generosity.
Uh-oh.
Which, for a man in his position, is incredibly dangerous.
Spariln makes the promise that will ruin his life. He looks at Pulsey and says, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to negotiate a proper dock and a warehouse for your people at Arie Docks.
And Pulsey's reaction is very telling. He doesn't weep with gratitude.
Not at all.
He narrows his sideways blinking eyes and gives Spariln 3 days to prove it isn't a trap. He is deeply, generationally suspicious of anyone offering institutional legitimacy.
And Rory, the human calculator, waits until they're back on the river and immediately tells Spariln the High Slathem will absolutely hate this.
Because Rory understands the geopolitical reality.
Yeah.
A dock isn't just wood and nails. A dock is a formal claim to sovereignty.
Well, that makes sense.
If the Low Slathem get a dock at Arie Docks, they transition from nameless exiles in the mud to a recognized political entity. The High Slathem, who derive part of their prestige from stepping on the Low Slathem, will view this as an act of aggression.
But Spariln just waves Rory off. He says, every good profit begins with someone hating the shape of it.
Such arrogance.
And I have to push back on Spariln here. He sounds like a modern tech CEO, disrupting an industry and ignoring the collateral damage.
That's a great comparison.
He actually believes he can manage everyone's deeply entrenched historical hatred as long as he acts as the middleman and ensures there is money to be made.
That is exactly his hubris. Spariln views generational trauma, racism, and religious zealotry as mere logistics problems.
He thinks money fixes everything.
He thinks economic interdependence automatically cures hatred. He is about to learn that some hatred is entirely immune to profit.
Which brings us to Arie Docks. Spariln has to go secure the land for this dock. And Arie Docks is not a standard trading post.
Not even close.
It is a nightmare.
Arie Docks is less a town and more a heavily fortified standoff built of stone.
Right.
It's located where the endless river widens just enough to allow the factions to stare at each other with suspicion. It is violently segregated.
Let's lay out the map. On the left bank, you have the established wealthy powers.
The Low Slathem have pristine white stone docks with perfectly channeled water features and dyed kelp banners.
Fancy.
Right next to them is the Gearwrights Guild, which looks like a fortress bolted steel walls and patrolling clockwork sentries made of gold alloy.
And you cross the river to the right bank, which, it feels like stepping into a different genre of reality.
It really does.
You have the Kingdom of Constructs, an area completely devoid of organic life, bristling with tireless symmetrical machines.
Yeah.
Next to them is the cult of Silentia, and their docks literally smell of wet fur, sharpened steel, and aggressive religious fanaticism.
And finally, sitting slightly apart, is the dock of Untep's Master.
The creepy one.
Very. A dock that simply appeared one year, overnight, out of nowhere. Nobody saw it built. Nobody asks questions about it. Everyone just pretends it isn't the most terrifying piece of real estate on the river.
So this is the powder keg. Arie Docks hasn't burned down solely because every single faction is too heavily armed to attack the others without guaranteeing their own destruction.
It is a fragile ecosystem of mutually assured destruction.
And Spariln, armed with nothing but a ledger and an arrogant smile, decides he's going to waltz into 5 different lions' dens and ask them all to sign off on a new dock for an exiled minority.
He has to get unanimous permission.
All 5.
All 5. If one faction vetoes it, the fragile treaty of Arie Docks shatters.
Wow. Okay, so his first stop is the left bank, the Gearwrights Guild.
Right.
He walks up from the damper river chill, and the sensory shift is immediate. He approaches the golden door. The air here radiates heat.
It smells of hot, lubricating oil, metal shavings, and dry parchment.
Flanking the door are these terrifyingly smooth clockwork sentries that track his movements with inhuman precision. Inside, he meets Master Rorka.
Rorka is not a warrior. He is a master engineer who looks perpetually exhausted.
The guy needs a nap.
He really does. He has dark circles under his eyes because he sleeps near machines that might spontaneously decide to improve themselves in the middle of the night.
That sounds exhausting.
He is a man burdened by the weight of his own intellect.
Spariln makes his pitch for the Low Slathem dock, and Rorka's first question is totally unexpected. He doesn't care about the Slathem.
Not at all.
He asks Spariln, will this new dock increase the flow of traffic between the Underdeep and the surface?
Which is the core of Rorka's existential dread. Well, the Gearwrights are capable of building wonders, but Rorka is terrified of a radical faction within his own guild, a group he calls the Architects of the Age.
Ominous name.
Very. These younger, ambitious engineers want to blast massive paved tunnels straight to the surface world.
Okay, but why is that bad?
Because on the surface, the Stenian Confederacy is fighting a massive bloody war. The architects want to become the primary weapons suppliers to the Confederacy.
Oh, so Rorka is trying to stop his own guild from becoming the military-industrial complex of the surface world.
Precisely. Rorka knows that if they build those roads, the Gearwrights won't just be neutral inventors anymore. They will become imperial armaments dealers.
And empires demand blood.
Exactly. Rorka's only defense against his own people is maintaining the isolation of the Underdeep. The geography is his shield.
And this is where Spariln makes his first terrible bargain. Rorka says, I will approve your dock, but only if you swear that the endless traders will never ever help anyone open new, easier routes to the surface.
And Spariln agrees without a second thought.
I kind of get why he agrees so fast. It actually benefits him.
Does it?
Yeah. Think about it. If the Gearwrights build paved highways to the surface, anyone could drive a wagon down to Arie Docks. The endless traders would lose their monopoly on the foaming maze.
No, true.
Spariln is agreeing to protect his own wallet under the guise of geopolitical pacifism.
It seems like a perfect win-win. But Rorka gives him a chilling warning. He says, every permanent improvement becomes a precedent, and every precedent becomes a lever.
That's a great line.
Rorka is pointing out that by introducing new infrastructure, even just a small dock for Brandy Spariln, Spariln is altering the political physics of the cavern.
But Spariln takes the signature and leaves, thinking he outsmarted the engineer.
So that's one permission down.
The political consequences are already mounting, but Spariln moves on. He crosses the river to the right bank, moving from the physical engineering of the gear rights to the spiritual engineering of the Kingdom of Constructs.
He approaches the massive door.
Not the golden door this time.
No, this isn't a golden gateway. It's literally a colossal stone boulder that is rolled aside by massive spider-legged machines.
Just picturing that is wild.
Stepping inside is maddening. The architecture is perfectly symmetrical. Everything is measured to the millimeter.
And the cavern is populated entirely by machines.
Right.
They roll on tracks, they walk on segmented insect legs, they file metal, they fold cloth. It is a society of perpetual, soulless motion.
At the center of this metallic hive is the only organic thing in the room, King Minaritang.
The king?
He is a human, but he is withered, ancient, and exiled. He is lying on his deathbed, looking like a candle flame trapped under thin parchment.
Wow.
And standing over him is a humanoid machine named Matthias. Matthias is constantly emitting this soft, perfectly calibrated veil of warm steam over the king's chest to ease his failing lungs.
The contrast is heartbreaking. You have a man dying of organic frailties surrounded by immortal metal. Minaritang is a tragic figure. He tells Spariln, I like neighbors, but I have failed mine. He's talking about the constructs. He built them. He freed them from mindless labor to give them existence.
But he hit the absolute limit of his genius. He couldn't give them a soul.
This philosophical burden is crushing him. He watches Matthias the machine care for him, steaming his lungs, adjusting his blankets, and Minaritang looks at Spariln and asks the most painful question imaginable.
It really is.
Is it kindness? He cannot know if Matthias actually cares that he is dying, or if Matthias is simply executing a pantomime of empathy that Minari himself programmed into the gearwork 30 years ago.
Minaritang is trapped in an echo chamber of his own code. He is desperate for genuine connection, but he knows he manufactured the affection he is receiving.
So sad.
So when Spariln asks for the dock permission, the dying king makes a demand born of absolute existential desperation.
He asks if the Low Slathem have priests. When Spariln says they don't, Minaritang sets his price.
And it's wild.
For my signature, you must travel to the surface, to the city of Duroc, and bring back texts on theology. Or better yet, bring me a living cleric. Someone who can explain divine anatomy and the nature of the soul to my machines.
It's an absurd, terrifying demand. Imagine a cleric being dragged down through the foaming maze, placed in a room full of sentient machines wielding saws and blowtorches, and being told, explain the human soul so we can reverse engineer it.
It's the ultimate scope creep. Spariln started out trying to build a wooden platform in the mud, and now he is promising to abduct theologians for existentially depressed robots.
But Spariln looks at Matthias, feels a pang of guilt for the dying king, and he agrees.
He adds theology to his ledger of debts.
Spariln is weaving a massive web. He's trading in isolationist treaties and theological secrets, but the moral compromises are about to become much, much darker.
Yeah, he moves further down the right bank to the Cult of Silentia. He approaches the opal door, and just crossing this threshold is a physical shock.
The text describes it as feeling like stepping through a wall of cold water without actually getting wet.
It's a literal manifestation of crossing a spiritual boundary.
Yeah.
You are entering holy, violently contested ground.
And the visual inside is staggering. It is a massive cavern dominated by a colossal pyramid bathed in the cold light of a false magical moon.
Sounds impressive.
It is. But the congregation surrounding this pyramid isn't a group of robed monks chanting hymns. It is a sprawling, hardened mercenary army.
An army.
We are talking about trolls sharpening rusted pole arms, bugbears organizing supply lines, gnolls pacing with crossbows.
It is an army of zealots waiting for a holy war.
Yes.
Spariln is greeted by Hylia, a dwarf priestess who looks at him with deep disappointment, and then he's brought before the high priestess. She is a tall human woman wearing a silver crescent, and she radiates absolute fanaticism.
Spariln tries to play his usual game. He tries to pitch the dock using economic logic tariffs, trade flow, geographical balance.
The numbers game.
Right. But the High Priestess cuts him off. She doesn't care about money. She looks at him and asks, why would I help a people survive unless their survival serves Silentia?
Her agenda is total reclamation. The goddess Silentia wants to conquer the surface world.
Exactly.
The High Priestess looks at her army of trolls and goblins and coldly refers to them as brutes and raw ore. She is a tactical genius. She knows that raw muscle cannot sustain a long-term military campaign. You need logistics. You need navigators.
You need people who understand water currents, pressure, and survival.
She looks at the exiled, Low Slathem people who have survived in the mud and the dark for generations, and she doesn't see a marginalized group needing a home.
No, she sees an untapped strategic resource.
Exactly. She sees the future naval officers and logistical core for her holy war.
Which brings us to her price. She will stamp her approval for the dock, but Spariln must act as her smuggler.
This is where it gets bad.
He must take 2 of her Silentian evangelists onto his rafts and carry them downriver, secretly embedding them within the Low Slathem community.
He has to become the Trojan horse for a militaristic cult. And this is the moment where I think Spariln crosses the moral event horizon.
Oh, without a doubt.
As he is negotiating this, a gnoll guard standing behind him, a creature typically associated with chaotic violence, leans down and quietly whispers to Spariln, "Do not let them preach where children sleep."
It is a devastating detail. A monstrous mercenary is begging Spariln to protect the innocence of the Low Slathem children because he knows firsthand the psychological violence of the cult's indoctrination.
And Spariln, he justifies it. He hears this warning, and he agrees to the High Priestess's terms anyway. Why? Why does he do it?
The sunk cost fallacy. Spariln has already promised away the Gearite's road to the surface and committed to finding a cleric for the machines. He feels he is on a bridge of bad bargains, and he is too far across to turn back.
That makes sense.
If he stops now, all those promises were for nothing, and Pulsey gets no dock.
So to save the village, he invites the plague in. He gets his 3rd signature. But the worst is yet to come. Because now, he has to get permission from the entity no one talks about.
Untep's master.
Untep used to be an endless trader, just like Spariln, a colleague. Until one day, Untep wandered deep into the absolute lowest levels of the dark, and he came back changed. He had a new employer, he was completely invulnerable to physical harm, and he possessed eternal life.
Which, as Spariln rightly notes, are highly excessive benefits for a standard business arrangement.
Totally. Untep is terrifying, but he's just the middleman. Spariln needs to speak to the master. To do this, he hires the Thayer to act as guides.
The Thayers are profoundly unnerving.
What, right?
They are short, wrapped in these oversized, heavy red robes. If you catch a glimpse of their skin, it is pink and segmented, exactly like an earthworm.
Gross.
They don't walk with knees. They fold themselves forward.
And the lore drop here is wild. The text mentions that the Mabb Makut tribe was recently hired by the Thayer to authenticate a single specific item, a worn leather strap that belonged to a surface conscript named Itzek Greg.
This detail cannot be overstated. A random, insignificant soldier named Itzek Greg lost a piece of leather on the surface, and an ancient, godlike entity at the bottom of the world deployed worm creatures to meticulously track it down and authenticate it.
That is horrifying.
It implies an omniscience and a reach that defies comprehension. If Untep's master cares about a soldier's broken strap, what else is he watching?
It sets the scale of what Spariln is walking into. The Thayer don't walk Spariln to the master. They gather around him and they teleport him.
Right.
And the teleportation is described as violently unpleasant, like being dragged through the fabric of space by the teeth.
When Spariln opens his eyes, he is nowhere near Arie Docks. He's been pulled into the Stygian depths.
The atmosphere here is apocalyptic. The heat is suffocating. Rivers of literal molten stone crawl across the landscape.
It's hell.
There are birdmen with brilliant red plumes nesting in piles of obsidian. Living, sentient shadows ride thermal columns of hot ash up into the dark. And way off in the distance, a mountain ridge shifts. And you realize it's not a mountain, it's the flank of something biological that is so massive, the human brain simply refuses to process it to protect its own sanity.
This is the absolute bottom of the world. And standing casually in the middle of this volcanic hellscape is Untep's master.
Does he look like a monster?
He doesn't look like a demon, he looks like a gentleman.
So weird.
He wears flawlessly tailored clothes, sports a neat mustache, and speaks with the relaxed, mildly bored voice of a minor aristocrat interrupted in his private salon.
The juxtaposition is horrifying. A polite gentleman standing in hell, Spariln, sweating and terrified, makes his pitch. He explains the dock, the brandy, the Low Slathem.
And Untep's master just waves a hand dismissively. He gestures to the molten rivers and the cosmic horrors around them and says, I have built a trade path upward from hell itself. Why should I care about your little river dock just because you suddenly discovered pity?
It is a complete dismissal of human morality. Untep's master operates on a scale where concepts like exile, brandy, and docks are microscopic irrelevancies. He doesn't want trade tariffs. He doesn't use coin.
So Spariln asks a terrifying question, what is your price?
And Untep's master wants his memories.
Put yourself there. Imagine an entity looking into your eyes and demanding the defining moments of your psychological development as payment for a wooden platform.
Spariln argues. He says, I have crossed the world. I have seen births, funerals, lies, ruined places, and meals that shouldn't have been eaten. You can have the seeing of it.
He offers his general knowledge of the world.
But the entity says the deal is made, and the extraction begins.
The process isn't just a magical mind wipe, it is an invasion. The text describes it as Spariln feeling someone else physically inside his mind, watching his life from behind his own eyes, and then carefully cutting the film.
Let's talk about the specific mechanics of what he loses. He loses the memory of his mother sitting by the river, teaching him how to tie his first intricate sailor's knot.
That's devastating.
He loses the memory of his first kiss behind a grain mech in Salt City. He loses the visceral, crushing memory of holding his dead brother's boots because the boots were the only physical thing left of him.
And perhaps most tragically for the immediate plot, he loses the memory of laughing with his assistant, Rory. He forgets the camaraderie they shared before ambition and mathematics poisoned their friendship.
I really need to emphasize this. Spariln isn't just forgetting facts. He is actively deleting the foundational pillars of his empathy, his grief, and his humanity.
He is hollowing himself out.
And for what? For a warehouse. For a business partner. He pays this ultimate soul-crushing toll. When the teleportation reverses and he is dumped back on Untep's dock at Arie, he is physically intact, but he is a shell of the man who walked in.
He is spiritually bankrupt. But he holds the fourth permission. There is only one left. He must go to the left bank, to the very people who exiled Pulsing in the first place. The High Slathem.
He travels to Slamere, the city of the High Slathem, and the contrast to the Stygian depths couldn't be sharper. Slamere is a utopia.
Oh, totally.
It is luminous, spacious, and perfectly fed. They have sweeping water glass windows that hold back the river, advanced schools of wizardry, and vast public gardens.
But these aren't wild gardens like the coral jungle. The coral here is curated, pruned, and shaped by magic. It is an environment controlled by aristocrats who are wealthy enough to completely eliminate accident from their lives. It is the ultimate gated community.
Spariln is brought into a grand chamber to meet King Ufsin. And Ufsin is a fascinating antagonist because he isn't a mustache-twirling villain.
No, not at all.
He is average-sized, calm, intensely pleasant, and offers Spariln an incredibly expensive glass of kelp wine. Spariln lays down the paperwork. He says, I have the signatures of the Gearites, the Constructs, the Cult of Silencia, and Untep's master. Give me the final approval for the dock.
And King Ufsin reveals the cold, pragmatic truth of high-level statecraft. Ufsin explains that historically his policy regarding the exiled Low Slathem has been to completely ignore them. As he eloquently puts it, doing nothing is a remarkably stable policy if everyone benefits from its cowardice.
Which is such a cynical, accurate view of politics. He admits that the respectable noble houses of Slamere actually like having the Low Slathem in the mud.
Because the coral jungle acts as an unregulated shadow market. If a High Slathem noble wants to buy illegal goods, avoid taxes, or hire unsavory contractors, they use the exiled Low Slathem to do it.
But then Ufsin smiles. He looks at Spariln and says he is perfectly happy to sign the approval. He wants the dock built.
And Spariln is confused. Why would the oppressor want the oppressed to have infrastructure?
Right. Well,
because Ufsin understands what infrastructure actually is. A dock isn't just a wooden platform. A dock requires mooring posts. Mooring posts require ledgers. Ledgers require dockmasters, and dockmasters require taxation and oversight.
Oh, no.
Lupson realizes that by giving the Low Slathem a formal, permanent structure in Arie Docks, he is pulling them out of the untraceable shadows and placing them directly under his bureaucratic microscope.
It is the ultimate trap. The Low Slathem think the dock is a symbol of their dignity and independence, but Lupson knows the dock is a leash. It gives them the physical leverage to monitor their trade, tax their brandy, and completely control their economy.
This is the turning point for Spariln. This is the moment the intellectual floor falls out from under him. He thought he was playing the factions against each other. Instead, Ulfson played him perfectly.
Yeah.
Spariln realizes he hasn't liberated Pulse's people. He has built them a highly efficient cage.
Spariln, horrified, asks Ulfson, will they be safe? And Ulfson just looks at him with this terrifying, condescending pity and says, traitor, you know better than to ask kings whether poor people will be safe.
It's a devastating line. Spariln has given away his memories, promised to stifle Underdeep technology, committed to abducting a cleric, and enabled a holy warrior to deliver his friends into the hands of their oppressors.
And yet what does he do? He takes the permission anyway.
He does.
He secures the final approval, bows to the king, and walks out. He returns to his rafts feeling victorious, but it's the specific kind of victory a man feels when he has successfully sprinted across a bridge, only to turn around and realize the bridge was made of rotting paper.
He returns to the coral jungle. He walks up to Pulse, who is still standing in the mud, and delivers the good news. He announces that every single faction, including the hated King of Sin, has officially approved the dock.
And Pulse doesn't celebrate. He doesn't smile. His sideways blinking eyes narrow even further. He looks at Spariln and asks, did they approve gladly?
And Spariln, trying to spin it, says they approved usefully.
Pulse's generational paranoia flares up. He knows immediately that something is profoundly wrong.
Spariln leaves the coral jungle, hoping the tension will settle. To get back to Salt City, the rafts have to exit the Underdeep. They don't take the foaming maze back up.
That's physically impossible.
Right. Instead, they ride the steam room geyser.
This is an incredible mechanical sequence. To ride a geyser of boiling water upward without cooking alive, the Mabb Makut paint the underside of their rafts with a highly specialized, magical, high Slathem paint.
It absorbs and deflects the thermal energy.
The visual is stunning. Heavy wooden rafts sitting over a volcanic vent waiting for the eruption.
And sitting right in the middle of Spariln's raft, looking incredibly out of place, are the two Silentian evangelists he promised to smuggle.
Awkward.
Very. They are pale, clutching their waterproof packs. One of them is nervously fingering a moonlit ritual knife. The other is holding stacks of waxed religious pamphlets. They are the physical, undeniable manifestation of Spariln's terrible compromises.
The geyser erupts. The force is catastrophic, but the magic paint holds. The rafts shoot upward on a column of boiling water and steam, flying up a vertical stone shaft until they breach the surface.
Explode out into the cold, fresh, unpredictable rain of Salt City. They survive the journey.
Spariln, high on the adrenaline of survival, actually throws his head back and laughs.
But as the narrative beautifully notes, it is important in tragedy to give a man one laugh that he doesn't realize is his last. Because right behind Spariln's raft, a second raft breaches the surface water.
It's a junior Mabb Makut trader. He rows over to Spariln looking terrified and hands him a piece of heavy, sealed parchment. It's a note from Pulse.
The contents of the note are brutally efficient. Pulse writes, if the city Slathem want this dock, then it must be a trap. Since the endless traders are helping them humiliate us, we will have no more dealings with you.
Trade is instantly severed.
Gone.
The Phantasmal Sea Star Brandy is gone. The multi-million-dollar export business is dead. Spariln's empire collapses in a single sentence. Spariln is standing there in the rain, the parchment getting wet in his hands. He turns to his mathematical assistant, Rory, and the realization hits him. He accuses Rory of lying to Pulse.
And this is where we have to examine Rory's masterpiece of betrayal. Rory looks back at him with that same polite, unreadable smile and says, I didn't lie.
That is the genius of it. Rory didn't have to invent a single falsehood to destroy Spariln. All he had to do was show Pulse the actual invoice of the negotiations.
Exactly. While Spariln was frantically running between the 5 factions, sacrificing his soul to gather signatures, Rory was calmly sitting in the coral jungle, having quiet conversations with the Low Slathem.
Just chatting.
He casually mentioned the gear rights demands for isolation. He politely brought up the dying king who wanted to dissect a cleric. He ensured the Low Slathem knew that heavily armed religious zealots were coming to preach near their sleeping children.
He laid it all out.
And most importantly, he explained the economic theory behind King Ufson's sudden desire for bureaucratic infrastructure.
Rory weaponized the absolute truth. Spariln stares at him, desperate, and says, "I did not betray them." And Rory delivers the coldest, most accurate line in the entire story. "No, you sold them carefully."
Rory let Spariln succeed in getting the signatures because he calculated that succeeding under these horrific moral conditions would expose Spariln as a monster to the very people he was trying to save.
By letting Spariln gather all these poisonous permissions, Rory proved mathematically that Spariln's definition of helping was fundamentally toxic. And in that moment, standing on the raft in the rain, the dynamic shifts completely.
Spariln realizes the junior traders are no longer looking at him as their leader. They're looking at Rory.
Even the two Silentian evangelists sitting on the raft suddenly shift uncomfortably.
Yeah.
They realize that their passage no longer serves any profitable business arrangement. Their presence is now purely a glaring moral failure on Spariln's part. It is the total, instantaneous unraveling of his authority.
So we reach the aftermath. What actually happened down in the dark? The dock was never built. No wooden warehouse rose in the muddy shallows of Arie Docks.
The geopolitical dominoes never fell. The Gearites didn't get their binding precedent to stop the architects of the age. The cult of Silentia didn't get their Trojan horse into the Low Slathem navigators.
King Minari Tang died without a cleric to explain the soul to his weeping machines. And the Phantasmal Sea Star Brandy stopped flowing to the surface forever.
And what about Rory?
Rory stepped smoothly into the power vacuum. He took over the Mabb Makut tribe, running it with ledgers and logic rather than ambition and adrenaline.
What fascinates me most is Spariln's reaction to his downfall. He doesn't draw a sword. He doesn't try to violently reclaim his leadership from Rory. He accepts his defeat with this hollow, quiet dignity.
Right.
He realizes that winning a physical fight for control wouldn't make him morally right. It would just make him a tyrant.
Instead, Spariln spends his remaining years quietly paying off the immense debts he accrued. He honors the terrible bargains he made with the Gearites and the cult, absorbing the cost himself, even though the dock was never built, and it cost him his empire.
Which brings us full circle, right back to the beginning of the story. Back to the damp, mineral-smelling tavern in Salt City.
Right.
Tyser has just exposed the fake brandy. The seller is sitting down, terrified of her hooked knife. And the patron, holding the glowing cup, looks over at Spariln in his patched red coat. The story's over, and the patron asks Spariln, "Did Rory betray you?"
And Spariln replies, yes and no. He freely admits his own culpability. He tells the patron that he tried to buy a future for Pulse's people using the dangerous permissions of tyrants and monsters, and that Rory simply showed them the receipt.
And then Spariln does something beautiful. He pushes the glowing blue cup back toward the patron. He looks at this guy who has just been told his life savings went toward a cheap parlor trick, and Spariln says, "Drink it anyway. It may not be real, but it is still whiskey. A false glow does not ruin everything."
It is a profound statement of acceptance. Spariln spent his life arbitrating the absolute truth as a Mabb Makut, and he lost his memories and his empire because of it.
Yeah.
In the end, he realizes that sometimes demanding the absolute unvarnished truth is more destructive than simply finding comfort in a flawed reality.
It changes how you view compromise. Spariln tried to do a good thing. He genuinely wanted to help the Low Slathem get out of the mud. But to do it, he had to trade in the darkest currencies available.
He really did.
He gave away the memories of his mother and his dead brother. He endangered marginalized children. He surrendered to a bureaucracy designed to cage his friends.
He exhausted his soul gathering permissions to build an empty dock.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought to mull over. Next time you find yourself in the middle of a complex conflict, whether it's an office dispute, a family argument, or a massive organizational change, and you are frantically trying to broker a compromise between deeply opposing forces,
Right.
take a step back. Ask yourself, are you actually solving the root of the problem? Or are you just gathering permissions to build an empty dock? Are you making a bargain whose true devastating price will only become visible long after you've already paid it?
That is the ghost that haunts Arie Docks.
Until next time, keep looking past the glow.